Americans got to hear from the two vice presidential candidates tonight for 90 minutes talking about key issues.
KCCI chief political reporter Amanda Rooker is in studio tonight with reaction from a Democrat and a Republican who are very familiar to Iowans. Amanda.
That's right. I'm here with Democrat and former Iowa Attorney General Tom Miller and former co-chair of the Republican Party of Iowa, David Oman. Thank you both for being here. Well, the debate that we watched tonight comes as we're expecting a very close race for the White House. Really winning over any undecided voters could make a substantial difference. Tom, we'll start with you. Do you think that either Vance or Walz was able to win over some of those undecided voters tonight?
Well, you're exactly right about it being so close. President Clinton would say it's tight as a tick. That's how he would describe it in his own way. We had the last two presidential debates that moved the needle more than just about any debate in a long time. So it's hard to really move the needle, particularly for vice presidential debates. I think both of them improved their impressions among the country. With Vance, he was knowledgeable and he was more likable than in a lot of other situations. And with Walz, as I mentioned earlier, when he got emotional about something, whether it's January 6th or immigration or healthcare, it was genuine. People could sense that he really believed this and really wanted these things to happen. So I think he advanced himself and the candidacy of Harris by doing that. And just a little bit on the negative side, and maybe I shouldn't be negative, I didn't think it was all that credible, to me anyway, as a Democrat, for Vance to blame Hillary's immigration policy for virtually all the ills in the world.
Well, we have seen immigration be the talking point of the Republican Party. When you go back to the last presidential debate, Donald Trump really talked a lot about immigration. One thing the three of us were talking about was it didn't necessarily seem like either of these candidates were focused on really rallying their base, but instead seemed to present a pretty moderate view. Some may say a moderate view. David, is that what you took away tonight? Were either of them particularly different to the undecided voter?
My sense is these two candidates did both tonight. I think they did rally their base. I think Republicans will be recharged. Some who may have had some concerns about Trump found a lot to like in Vance. He's got a future in this party. I'd say the same thing on the other side. Tim Walz is a very relatable guy. And he showed that tonight. I think the base is...
He's from the Midwest,
well,
the heart of the Midwest.
I'm going to get to that right now, but we have 7 states that will decide the whole ballgame. It's Georgia and North Carolina. Gotta love them. Hopefully they can put the state back together and vote. You got the trio of Midwestern states, Ohio, Michigan, and Wisconsin. I think these two fellows from the Midwest will probably live in those states for the next 4 weeks and help decide it. Arizona, Nevada, out west will decide. In Iowa, we talked about that a few minutes ago. I think this race is closer than it was, 4 or 5 points now. I think Trump still wins, but a margin that's lower than before, and that may have an impact on 2 of our 4 congressional races.
I know there's so much more that we could talk about this debate, but unfortunately that is all the time that we have. Thank you both for joining us tonight.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
We'll send it back to you in the studio. Stacey.
Amanda, thank you. There are just 34 days until the election. It's going to be right here. And we want to make sure you're confident in casting your vote. You can find all of our coverage on candidates and their stances on the issues that matter to you on kcci.com or the mobile app. Just click the Commitment 2024 tab.